Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Dick, thanks for the introduction. Terry, thank you, as well as Deb, for being co-chairs of the event. Some nuclear generation, natural gas, and some petroleum, and we also have some hydroelectric on the river, as you know, and some renewables. This is changing rapidly and significantly, mainly with the advent and in development of the technology in hydraulic fracturing and natural gas deposits that we have here in Ohio, as well as across the region and the country. Some estimates are nationally, I think our overall generation of energy from coal is just over 50 or 55%. Ohio is certainly above that, and overall, and I think there's estimates, wild estimates, if you will, on just how prolific natural gas and low cost and abundant natural gas is going to have an impact on that, bringing our coal generation nationally somewhere below 35%. But I think those are certainly just speculation at this point, but certainly natural gas is going to have an impact. So why is Ohio leading on energy policy? And I've tried to break it down into a couple issues. One is that we do have some diverse natural resources, whether it's coal and whether it's hydro, whether it's natural gas, whether it is renewables, wind and solar, biogas. Ohio's blessed in having a number of opportunities, and the governor's perspective on this is certainly all these sources need to be competitive, but it's really at all seats at the table kind of perspective. We can use all the energy we can produce, because it ties into the next slide, because energy equals jobs and job creation. We don't do a lot, if you understand, in the administration without focusing on economic development, job creation. Many of those issues relate directly back to energy, having low-cost, abundant supplies of energy to drive our economics and development. There's also increased federal regulatory pressures on coal and coal-burning industries from the federal government, from US EPA and others that are really driving some significant changes in the electric generation market. And there are new technologies, particularly hydraulic fracturing and the oil and gas development in the tight shales, that are really driving access to new economical energy sources. We're also seeing some fairly significant changes in cost structures related to solar power generation and even wind and other renewable resources that I think are all making some of the renewable assets more cost effective.
Thank you and appreciate the invite. Good morning to all of you. I'm happy to speak to you here today. As Jim mentioned, I work for River Operations, which is American Electric Power's river division. Our responsibilities is we move about 30 million tons of coal and consumables to our power plants. We also move about 45 million tons of commercial commodities throughout the inland waterway system. Of that 45 million tons of commercial commodities, about 20 million tons of that is the Ohio River. So when you combine our fuel and consumables to the power plants and what we do commercially, we ship about 50 million tons in the Ohio River Basin. Very important piece of the inland waterway infrastructure for AEP River Operations. I take real pride every time I have a chance to talk about the safest, most fuel efficient, most environmentally friendly, and most economical means of transporting bulk commodities within the United States. I'm going to present to you some highlights of a study that was entitled "A Model Comparison of Freight Transportation Effects on the General Public." This study was authored by the Center for Ports and Waterways at the Texas Transportation Institute, and the study compares truck, rail, inland marine transportation in terms of safety, energy efficiency, environmental impact, and congestion. The independent university-based experts in trucking, rail, maritime transportation reviewed the work of the TTI study periodically, and also when it was completed, to ensure the data was properly reviewed and interpreted. River transportation is the safest means for transporting bulk commodities within our country. Very important on the research team was to look at the risk of the general public arising from each mode of transportation. The research team didn't want to capture occupational injuries, such as a truck driver lifting up a heavy box and injuring his back, or a deckhand tripping and falling on deck. Instead, they focused on the accidents that affected the general public, such as a truck crash, a grade crossing accident with railroad, a train derailment, or even an accident where a towboat would hit a bridge. And the results were certainly very striking, as this slide shows. On a per ton mile basis, the TTI study found that for every person who was injured in an accident related to a barge, there were 95 injuries related to rail and over 1,609 injuries related to the trucking industry. And that's just to the general public. They took the same study and looked at it on fatalities on the same basis, and the numbers were again striking. For every fatality in a barge-related accident, there are 18 fatalities that are rail-related and 132 fatalities in the trucking-related accidents. Again, that statistic is based on ton miles moved, so you can't simply state that trucks move more tons or rail moves more tons than barge. So not only are we the safest, we're the most fuel-efficient means of transporting bulk commodities. The inland waterways can move 1 ton of freight 616 miles on 1 gallon of fuel. You take that same ton of freight for the railroad industry, and they can move it 478 miles on 1 gallon of fuel. And trucking moves that same ton of freight 150 miles on 1 gallon of fuel. This makes the inland waterways industry more than 400% fuel efficient than trucking and almost 30% more fuel efficient than rail. And if we're that fuel efficient, we're certainly more environmentally friendly. To take the same amount of cargo generated that moves on the river and move it to rail creates 30% more carbon dioxide than by barge and over 1,000% more carbon dioxide emissions by truck as compared to barge. Not only are we safe, fuel efficient, and environmentally friendly, we're the most cost-effective mode of transportation there is. In 2010, I know Chuck talked about 2009 tonnage of 522 million tons. In 2010, the inland waterway system moved over 566 million tons of freight valued at over $180 billion. The average cost savings is about $11 per ton versus rail and truck, according to the TTI study. So the inland waterway system saved the country $6.2 billion in transportation costs in 2010. As this slide depicts, and I know some of you have seen this slide, one 15-barge tow that you see going up and down the Ohio River is the equivalent of 216 rail cars and 6 locomotives, or 1,050 trucks. Now, I mentioned the 566 million tons that the inland waterways system moved in 2010. I've got no idea what 566 million tons looks like. So here's some key facts that may help put this in perspective. Keeping all that cargo on the waterways instead of our highways means 51 million truck trips that aren't sharing the road with us today. Stated another way, if we were to take all the cargo that currently moves by inland barge throughout the country and put it on trucks, and assume that those trucks were distributed evenly across our interstate system, we'd have 83% more truck traffic than we have today. This assumes that all these trucks would be evenly distributed between our transportation system. Unfortunately, most of these commodities are near the river, so you would actually have a more congested area near river ports and towns.
I'm with the Maritime Administration Office of Marine Highways, and one of the missions of the mission of the Maritime Administration is obviously to improve and strengthen the marine transportation system that is within the United States for both domestic and international commerce. Ports are our gateways to global trade, and we need to make sure that they are completely efficient and competitive, and that's what our agency does. Our vision for the Marine Highway Office is to establish reliable, regularly scheduled, competitive, and sustainable services to employ U.S. ships and U.S. mariners for the movement of domestic containerized freight. To date, we've spent about $130 million investing in marine highway-related infrastructure, whether it be through Tiger Grants, which another round of awards has just been announced a couple weeks ago, and Marine Highways did very well with that, with a new award down in Brownsville, Texas, and at the Port of Catoosa in Oklahoma, and so there's been a substantial amount of interest and an investment on the part of the department to grow Marine Highways and make more efficient use of our maritime infrastructure. One of the next things we've been working on over the last 2 years has been doing corridor studies. Back in 2010, we designated 18 corridors, connectors, and crossings to highlight the availability of maritime for the movement of domestic containerized freight. Right now, water is basically used for, especially on the inland side, to move bulk freight. And because it's cheap, it's easy, it's high volume, whereas containerized goods, finished goods, pretty much move by road and rail, and water is underutilized for that. And water offers additional free capacity that just needs to be utilized. And so one of the things we're doing right now is conducting studies along the East Coast, West Coast, and inland rivers to determine the market viability of marine highways for the movement of that domestic containerized freight. These corridor studies are going to be focused on three main things: a market analysis to look where the freight's moving from, and two, what kinds of freight, what's the time sensitivity, what's the weight, is it hazmat? The high weight and hazmats seem to be the best cargoes to move via water, because it offers security for the hazmats, and it offers substantial savings, 20 or 30% savings for manufacturers for heavyweight cargoes, so they can max out those container boxes rather than having to light load stuff.
The mission of the Education Fund is to fund sound science for all citizens of the state of Ohio. We have three different categories, or three different audiences that we fund. One is the general public, the second is the pre-K through university level audiences, and the third is the regulated community, where the money comes from. Yeah, last year we funded the Books Teacher Workshop, what was to add additional teachers to the program, where they have worked with technology and doing water chemistry analysis on the Ohio River. The funding is going to encourage more teachers to become part of the program, and it is true to our mission, because we like to fund things that out of the Education Fund that are related to science, and that there's sound science that teachers are learning, to be able to take that information back to their students and teach them about engineering and science and just water quality in general. It does, yeah. We see a lot of projects come across in the grant fund, and it's interesting just to see those projects, to be able to go out and do site visits and see how well they followed through, and to see the progress with the money that we've been giving them. So it's interesting to see those different types of projects that we have across the state of Ohio. The fund was created 21 years ago, so there's been a lot of projects funded in that 21 years.
Okay, my name is Justin Wiseman. I'm a civil engineering student at Ohio University. I'm studying water resources. So far, what I've learned from the symposium is the benefits of fracking, as well as the risk of fracking. I've also learned about the health of the Ohio River. The #1 pollutant source of the Ohio River is suspended solids. Learned about Asian carp invading the Ohio River, as well as the zebra mussels and other invasive species.
My name is Yiqing Guan. I'm from China, from Hehe University. Hehe University is the biggest university in the world for the water education and research. In Chinese, the name it means that He means river, Hai means ocean, sea. So the university name indicates that our university very strong in the water research and education. Yes, and also for the three grand dams, for the designing, planning phase, our university, a lot of professors involved in such work since 1960s. When I was the students of the university, our professors already taught us they do some research work for the planning about this dam. But the dam, it was started in 1993, but it was planned in 1910, 100 years ago already.
Wow.
They do some survey work about this dam. For navigation, the channel, is before the dam, it's about 10,000 tons ship come from the sea to the Wuhan city, but they can't go to the Yichang city, to the dam site. But after the dam complete, the water level above the dam increases. It's about more than 100 meters deep for water depth in the reservoir. And the downstream regions, just below the dam, also they have the increased water depth. So it means the bigger ships from the sea, ocean, can go to the inland.
Most of the talks, actually all the talks, are going to be focused on subsurface energy. Let me introduce myself. I'm Hal Walker. I'm the director of the Ohio Water Resources Center. We're the federally designated Water Resources Research Institute for the state of Ohio, as created through the Water Resources Research Act. There's one center in each of the 50 states, as well as a number in many of the territories of the United States. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the Marcellus and Utica Shale formations and potential impacts to water resources. I'll have to admit it is a little Ohio-centric, but a lot of the principles and concepts that I talk about today can be applied to your state if you're not from Ohio.
So just a quick overview of the geochemical content and characteristics. Shale is a fine-grained sedimentary rock. It's comprised of silts and clay-sized mineral particles, and depending on the deposition environment, there's usually variations in the carbonate, iron oxide, and sulfide mineral content.
The Appalachian Basin here largely bisects the Ohio River Basin. Or to give another view, here we have this medium-grade coal formation, and a lot of it. And some higher grades and lower sulfur in the western states.
The Orbcre has been in existence for some almost 30 years. It was organized in the mid-'80s, and the whole idea was to foster collaboration between the universities and colleges in the Ohio Basin, dealing with issues of both aquatic and terrestrial resources, and but emphasizing the Ohio River itself and the environmental and other resource aspects of the river. Well, it certainly can impact where our emphasis is at. Orsanco is an organization that's taking on new roles. I mean, they are getting much more involved in the water resource arena through their Water Resource Committee. I see this as an area where Orbcre can become much more involved, in particular at our scientific symposiums. We can place more emphasis on this very issue. Right now there's a real lack of any organizations within the basin who deal directly with what the water resource needs. And so I think Orbcre can play a very important role in doing that, in being a focal point and fostering research, educational aspects regarding water resources.
And then for purposes of assessment and reporting, Ohio EPA has further divided the state up into 1,538 subwatersheds. Of course, you can lump and split watersheds in any way you want, so you could use any number, but for their purposes, for reporting and assessment, they have divided up the state into 1,500, and you can see with the coloring there, you can get a sense of how many watersheds that works out.
And then also, in looking at the Green River Basin, this is more comparable in size to the earlier two watersheds I mentioned. It's at 9,000 square miles.
It's one of top 4 river systems in the U.S. in aquatic biodiversity. It has 151 fish species and 71 mussel species. It's also the subject of an ongoing Sustainable Rivers project with the Nature Conservancy.
Being in the National Forest, we have the opportunity to work with the Forest Service, and so Sam went out and looked at some of these ridgetop ponds, and he's kind of a fur, fin, and critter sort of student, so he was interested in looking at some of the things that we're using these ridgetop ponds. And if you look at these ridgetop ponds, if you think about it, they're ridgetop, and I'll have some pictures here, and they are right on top of the ridge, which means that your watershed is basically the size of the pond.
Well, there's really been 2 over the past several years that are significant. The first is dissolved oxygen sensors have evolved from electrochemical sensors to optical measurements. These have extended the deployment life from what might be a week or 2 to several weeks, perhaps even a couple of months. The second technology is real-time telemetry and data via the web. So the water quality sensors collect data in real time, send that data through cellular telemetry, radio, or satellite telemetry back to a computer, and then post that data on a website that makes it available to researchers in real time.
Well, I've definitely learned that there is a lot more to the Ohio River Basin than I knew about. A lot with the waterways and the different protection that they're trying to do with, like, the mussels that we just saw about, and some other things, just some new research ideas. How about you?
I've heard a lot of new perspectives on things that I've just heard about in my classes, like the fracking. I guess coming from an environmental background, I've heard the negative sides of it mostly, and it was really interesting to hear the positive things about it. So.
Well, I definitely like the boat trip. The books trip was really fun to get to see things that they pulled out of the water, things that I didn't know were in the water, and see actually just how clean it is, which is a nice, refreshing thing to know. And also the presentations have been really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked the boat trip where we got to test for, like, phosphorus content and things like that, because I mean, we use that in research from USGS and stuff like that, but it's interesting to see how they get that data.
Down in Southeast Ohio, we don't have a lot of opportunities to do projects with universities and to get some different experiences. So I wanted to experience with my kids to give them, we're going on the boat, we're working with the university, we're working with a lot of good people, and to see just what future aspects you might be able to go into. Any interest in science helps, and if we can develop some interest in science with the kids, they might have a career path where they can go into. I think so. It's just one small chunk of what they can go into, but if it opens their eyes to different areas, then it's totally worth it. The STEM-wise, we try to use as much as we can as far as different labs go, activities, hands-on things, and this program definitely ties right into that thought. Yeah, it's different, just like anybody. If you stand there and talk to them about it, it's not as real as if you do it yourself and in person. So it's definitely an authentic experience, and the kids really enjoy going on the boat. Unfortunately, I can't get all my kids to go on the boat, but hopefully we can bring some of the information we got from the boat back and some of the experiences we got back from the boat to the classroom.